Yep.
Yes, sir. You're good.
All right, so I'll just go ahead and do the roll. Senator McClellan.
Here.
Senator Stanley.
Here.
Senator McPike.
Here.
Delegate Bourne. Delegate Hurst.
Here.
Delegate Simmons.
Here.
Delegate LaRock. Delegate Campbell.
Here.
Dr. James Wayne.
Here.
Joseph D'Amico.
Here.
Manu Ganawala.
Here.
Did I pronounce that correctly?
It's Manju.
Manju.
Ganeriwala.
Gani. I'm going to practice that.
It's like the bird canary. Instead
Yes,
of canary, it's Ganeri. Ganeriwala.
I'm going to practice in private.
All right. That's all right.
Daniel Timberlake.
Here.
Stephanie Hamlet. Daniel Gecker.
Here.
Stuart Robertson.
Here.
Wilma Battle.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. And we're now going to go with the election of the chair. I will now open the floor for nominations of chair. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate Senator McClellan as chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations? The motion to close the nominations?
Moved.
We will now vote on the nominee. All those in favor of Senator McClellan, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator McClellan is the chair, and I will turn the meeting over to her.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, everyone, for your vote of confidence. And I guess technically we haven't kicked this off yet, but this is the Commission on School Construction and Modernization's organizational meeting for those watching on the live stream. And we will now, I will now open the floor for nominees for vice chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Delegate Bourne.
I'd like to nominate Delegate Chris Hurst as vice chair, for vice chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Are there any further nominations? Is there a motion of nominations be closed?
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor of closing the nomination?
Aye.
Aye.
And all in favor of Delegate Hurst as vice chair?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations, Delegate Hurst. And I think it is appropriate that we have a chair and a vice chair that represent urban, suburban, and rural areas, because this is an issue that impacts all of our communities across the Commonwealth. And we have seen, whether you are in downtown Richmond or in Pulaski, that we have many school construction and modernization renovation needs. And this is not a new issue here in the Commonwealth. We have had at least 2 other studies of what our facility needs are, one under Governor McDonald and then one under the leadership of then chair of the local government committee, Bill Stanley. And so we are going to start with an overview from Ryan Brimmer of the studies that we have had on this issue that identify our facility needs across the Commonwealth. And then he will go over some of the legislation that has been introduced related to funding of state funding of school construction and modernization. Ryan?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. I'm going to provide that brief overview. There have been several pieces of legislation relating to school building standards over the past 3 years. I'm sure you'll want to focus on that moving forward, but for right now, I'll just focus on the school construction funding issue, because this is where most of the attention has been focused of late. So I will start this review in the spring of 2018. As you mentioned, Senator Stanley, as chair of the Senate Local Government Committee, formed a 9-member bipartisan subcommittee to determine the construction and renovation needs for public school buildings in the Commonwealth, expanding upon a 2013 inventory of public school buildings ordered by Governor McDonnell that found that of the 2,030 school buildings in use at the time, 1,227 of those, or over 60%, were more than 40 years old. Over the next several months, the subcommittee toured school buildings throughout the Commonwealth and met with local, state, and national experts, and ultimately concluded that the need for healthier, safer, and more welcoming learning environments necessitated legislative action. Senator Stanley introduced bills during the 2019 general session of the General Assembly to establish a grant fund for school building roof repair and replacement, and to provide for a statewide referendum at the November general election on the question of whether the General Assembly should issue state general obligation bonds in the amount of $3 billion for the purpose of school building construction or repair or other capital projects related to the modernization of school facilities. Those bills, SB 1702 and SB 1330, were not successful, but the activity of the subcommittee was indicative of a renewed focus on increased support for public school construction and renovation after existing state grant and low interest loan programs had essentially become defunct or underutilized. So I'll speak briefly about the other relevant bills and budget actions from the last 3 regular legislative sessions. In the 2019 session, Delegate Bourne introduced House Bill 1921 to permit school boards to finance capital projects with funds appropriated to it by the local governing body that were unexpended by the school board in that year. That bill did not pass. In 2019, however, there were 2 bills that were successfully passed into law, as well as some accompanying budgetary actions. First, the General Assembly passed Senator Ruff's SB 1093 to establish a literary fund loan interest rate subsidy program for certain low LCI school divisions and provided $5 million for that program, an additional $30 million for first priority waitlist literary fund loan projects. Second, the General Assembly passed Delegate Edmonds' House Bill 1634 to authorize Halifax County to impose an additional local sales and use tax up to 1% and to require revenue to be used solely for capital projects for new construction or major renovation of schools in Halifax County. Moving on to the 2020 general session, there were several bills and budgetary actions to note. First, the General Assembly passed bills to authorize several other localities, including Charlotte, Gloucester, Henry, Mecklenburg, Northampton, Patrick, Pittsylvania, and Danville, to impose the additional 1% local sales and use tax, just like Halifax. 6 of the 9 authorized localities have since approved the tax. Second, Governor Northam successfully proposed an amendment to the casino bills, House Bill 4 and Senate Bill 36, that requires any revenues remaining in the gaming proceeds fund that are not appropriated for other enumerated purposes to remain in the fund until appropriated by the General Assembly for programs established to address public school construction, renovations, or upgrades. Next, this commission was successfully established per Senator McClellan's SB 888. Stephen will discuss that further in a minute. Finally, the General Assembly amended the budget to rename the lottery per pupil funds as the Infrastructure and Operations per pupil fund, and the amendment requires a portion of these funds to be used for non-recurring costs, including school construction, additions, infrastructure, site acquisition, renovations, school buses, technology, and other expenditures related to modernizing classroom equipment. This amendment also added a local match requirement. It established a floor to ensure each school division would receive at least $200,000 annually. And it thus restored a similar pre-recession restriction on the use of these funds. And it mirrors the amount that school divisions previously received under the now defunct Virginia Public School Construction Grants Program. Several bills in the 2020 regular session did not pass. Senator Stanley reintroduced his school roof grant fund bill and bond referendum bill, SB4 and SB6. Neither passed into law. Delegate O'Quinn and Senator Pillion introduced identical bills, HB 1274 and SB 1087, to establish a school construction fund and program to provide grants to school divisions for school construction and modernization. Neither one of those bills passed. And Delegate Kilgore introduced House Bill 86 to permit certain fiscally stressed, lowest LCI school divisions to use a portion of their state SOQ funding for debt service on school construction or renovation projects. And that bill did not pass either. Finally, in the 2021 general and special sessions, the General Assembly included language in the budget to require the Department of Education and the Department of Treasury to develop recommendations to make literary fund construction loans more competitive and attractive to school divisions as a viable source for funding school construction projects, and to report these recommendations to the governor and to the chairpersons of the House Appropriations and Senate Finance and Appropriations Committees no later than July 31st, 2021. Several legislative efforts were unsuccessful also in 2021. Senator Stanley, Delegate O'Quinn, and Delegate Kilgore again introduced substantively similar versions of their 2020 bills, and none passed. And Senator Norman carried Senate Bill 1170 to add Isle of Wight to the list of localities authorized to increase the local sales and use tax to fund school construction, but that bill did not pass. So just to sum up, Madam Chair, the General Assembly's efforts within the past 3 years have focused on enhancing funding for school construction and renovation by, number one, maintaining existing programs that work well. I haven't mentioned the Virginia Public School Authority because it has not been subject to any recent legislation, but it acts as a bond bank that provides low-cost financing of capital projects, and the authority's bond programs are very much in use. Number two, strengthening existing funding sources like the literary fund and lottery proceeds. And number three, creating new sources of funding, such as setting aside certain casino gaming revenues, issuing state general obligation bonds, establishing state grant programs, granting flexibility in the use of SOQ funds, and authorizing local sales tax. Finally, I will just mention that one potential issue on the horizon is the extent to which federal funds recently made available to the Commonwealth and its localities could be directed towards school construction and renovation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Senator Stanley.
I enjoyed the recitation of all the bills I've put for the last years that were defeated. But we should also add to that list Senate Bill 1331 and House Bill 2192 in the 19 session, which permitted schools to engage with private contractors to build schools that they would then buy back using solar energy, and or to allow schools to utilize solar energy to power their schools, and then any excess of that solar energy could be sold on the grid to the providers of energy in a way of providing a low-cost alternative on school modernization. And actually, it passed and became law. So we did have a win there, and Nick Rush carried the House bill and I carried the Senate bill. So and I think that should be added to our cadre of initiatives that we're trying to work forward to. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Stanley. Before I turn it over to Steve, and I'm going to open it up to any questions for Ryan. But before I do that, Ryan, I think it would be helpful if you could provide a copy of your overview to the members and post it on the website. But in addition, the two previous reports, I believe there was a report from Senator Stanley's working group and from Governor McDonald, the study under Governor McDonald, if we could provide copies of those to all the members and post on the website as well. I don't think we want to recreate the wheel, but we definitely will need to update those studies. And I think everyone having copies would be a good start. So with that, I'd like to ask if there are any questions of Ryan before we turn it over to Steve to go over sort of the scope of this commission and our work. Hearing none. Thank you, Ryan. And Stephen, if you can give us an overview of the commission, our membership, purpose, and duties.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to run through the parameters set out in the Code of Virginia for the commission's work. As Ryan mentioned, Senate Bill 888, pagined by Senator McClellan, passed during the 2020 General Assembly session under Chapter 1044 of those Acts of Assembly. It changes the Code of Virginia in Title 30 in Chapter 61. First, Section 30-384 of the Code describes the purpose of the commission, which broadly is to develop and provide guidance and resources to local school divisions on school construction and modernization, and to make funding recommendations to the governor and the General Assembly. Section 30-385 discusses the membership and terms for the commission. It has 17 total members, 8 General Assembly members, 2 of which shall serve as the chair and vice chair. This includes 3 members of the Senate appointed by the Senate Rules Committee, 5 members of the House of Delegates appointed by the Speaker of the House, 3 non-legislative citizen members, 1 appointed by the governor, 1 appointed by the Senate Committee on Rules, and 1 appointed by the Speaker of the House, and 6 members serving ex officio with voting privileges, including the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Dr. Lane, Director of Department of General Services, Mr. D'Amico, the Executive Director of the Virginia Resources Authority, Ms. Hamlet, the State Treasurer, Ms. Ganeriwala, the President of the Board of Education, Mr. Gecker, and the Director of the Department of Planning and Budget, Mr. Timberlake. As far as terms go, the General Assembly Commission members and the members serving ex officio will serve terms coincident with their terms of office. The non-legislative citizen members are appointed for a term of 2 years at a time, and all members may be reappointed. Section 30-386 describes what a quorum represents at meetings and voting on recommendations. Simply, a majority of commission members shall constitute a quorum, and no recommendation shall be adopted if the majority of Senate members or House Commission members vote against a recommendation and vote for a recommendation to fail, notwithstanding the majority vote of the commission. Section 30-387 discusses the compensation and expenses information for the commission members. Section 30-388 gets into the powers and duties of the commission. First, to assess the Commonwealth school facilities and determine school construction and modernization funding needs. 2, to identify funding mechanisms with recommendations to the governor and the General Assembly. 3, to establish best practices in school construction and modernization for school divisions. 4, creating standardized construction designs and procurement practices to recommend and make available to local school divisions. 5, to identify potential cost-saving measures for implementation by local school divisions to minimize construction and modernization costs where possible. And finally, 6, to submit an annual report to the General Assembly and the governor, and the chair shall also submit an annual executive summary on the commission's work by the first day of the subsequent General Assembly session. Finally, Section 30-382 describes a sunset date for the commission of July 1st, 2026. Now, the bill did have a second enactment clause stating that if the commission is not funded by a dedicated appropriation after its first year in existence, then the code provisions for the commission will expire on July 1st of the fiscal year in which it fails to receive funding. This past special session during 2021 The budget bill HB 1800 as enrolled included item 27.30, which provided general funds of $34,340 for each fiscal year of 2021 and 2022. And the governor submitted his budget amendment request last night, but did not request any such amendments to this commission's budget line item. And unless there are any questions, Madam Chair, that would conclude my overview of the commission's membership, purpose, and duties. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions? Okay, hearing none, we will discuss our 2021 interim working plan. I think obviously the first step really is for us to quantify the scope of our facility needs for our schools across the Commonwealth, which actually is the first item in our powers and duties, assessing the Commonwealth school facilities and determining school construction and modernization funding needed. Anecdotally, I will say, Delegate Hurst and I did a tour out in Radford of two of the schools there. In our conversations with the superintendent, his ballpark estimate of just the full renovation and needs that they have, everything from installing air conditioning in one of their schools to renovations, we're about $30 million. That's one school division in the Commonwealth. And so I think the first step we would want to do is survey each of our school divisions to have them identify what their funding needs are. I know for some school divisions, their funding needs are met through surplus funds that may occur at the end of their locality's fiscal year, and in Radford's situation, that just simply wasn't enough. So I think, obviously we can't fully identify the scope of the problem until we've identified the scope of the problem. And so, Dr. Lane, I would ask if you and commission staff could work with the superintendents to identify what they see their full funding needs are and renovation needs. And then we will, at our next meeting, and we will survey the members to identify a meeting. I would like for us to meet in, well, first, I guess before I say when we meet, Dr. Lane, about how long do you think such a survey would take?
I think we could complete that in a month, Senator.
Okay. So I think we will schedule a meeting in sort of mid-May. Is that reasonable?
Yes, ma'am. Later May might be better, just with spring break and all that going on.
That's fair. That is fair. And so we will survey the members. Under the rules, we are allowed to have meetings in the first or third full week of the month, absent permission from, I guess it would be the Senate Rules Committee, since the senator chairs the commission. Any other week, we would have to get permission from the Rules Committee. So do you think that third week of May is late enough, or would you want the final week of May?
I would prefer the final week of May, if that's possible.
That's fair. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Delegate Bourne.
Just a quick question for Dr. Lane. In compiling the information on the total need, is it overly burdensome to sort of take a look at how the amount of need might correlate to the school divisions that serve the highest number of children in need?
We can certainly provide demographic data of the schools and the divisions. And I thought the commission may also want to know just how many buildings were built, say, before the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so we were going to try to provide you a list of every facility in the Commonwealth and their last date of renovation and their original date of construction. So that's why I'm asking for just a little bit more time, not a lot of time, just because in addition to the survey, we'll try to be really detailed. Thank you, Delegate Bourne.
Thank you.
Senator McClellan.
Yes, I
Yeah,
can't.
Senator McClellan.
Yes.
Aye. Thank you. Would it be possible to add to that survey list how much capital expenditures the divisions make in a given year, so that we can see how well they're maintaining the existing stock?
Yes, I think that would be reasonable. Dr. Lane, is that something you all could add?
Yes, I think we may be able to pull that from the table 15 of the annual superintendent's report. So I think that's actually can be done pretty quickly, but I'll check with the staff, but no problem having that done by the end of May.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Rob.
Dr. Lane, I'm assuming too that it won't be burdensome to show the LCI for each of the school districts when you're producing that information.
Certainly, we'll provide that as well.
Thanks.
You all have anticipated the question I was going to ask. Is there any other data we would like Dr. Lane to pull for our next meeting?
Madam Chair.
Senator McPike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Lane, I guess the other question would be the standard length of years in terms of a capital budget that I presume the superintendents would be pulling from. And I don't know if the standard would be 6 years. I know some localities use 6, some use 10. I presume we're going to ask for one standard set of out year capital outlay. Is it 6 years, or what are you familiar with, Dr. Lane?
It varies by locality. Some will have it be as short as 5, and some will have capital plans that extend to 20. So when we survey them, we'll ask how far out their capital plan looks. Thank you, Senator.
Okay, and one follow-up, Madam Chair. Probably more difficult question, which is whether or not the localities and superintendents have the replacement value of those assets, because ultimately that leads to our third charge, which is the ultimate best practices of modernization, as well as ties into funding, which is what is the facility condition index? In other words, what is the long-term deferred maintenance and capital infrastructure requirements? And it's difficult to know what that is without understanding what the asset replacement value is. In other words, how many assets and how much are they worth in terms of replacing them?
And Senator, that some of that type of information may take longer. And as we write the work plan, maybe that could be for the second meeting, Senator.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a much more detailed and complex question, because I'm not sure that all localities have them, but that's going to be an important question to help guide this commission's work. So thank you.
Yep.
Any other data the commission would like to see for our next meeting?
Senator, if I may.
Delegate Hurst.
Thank you. I don't know if it's been mentioned, or maybe I didn't hear it, but anything that we could gather to just, and I think the information should be readily available from maybe the Commission on Local Government, but just on fiscal stress and the fiscal stress index of our localities. In Virginia, our school boards have to get approval from their, councils and their boards on their budgets, and that's comparative to revenues that those localities are able to raise. And I think fiscal stress and the ability to raise locally is a very, very important thing for us to analyze as we're trying to, I think, see what the ability is of our school divisions to try and meet this need. And I think the numbers may show, at least in my mind, that there is an inability, and that's why I think maybe the state can play a role. But I'd love to see the numbers if that's something that can be put together as well.
Okay.
Senator,
Yes.
thank you. We will work on that. And maybe Delegate Hurst, I'd add to that some analysis of the debt capacity in the locality, because I think that there are school divisions that may be able to afford ongoing payments, but may not have the capacity to actually raise the debt. And so I thank you for that one.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
This is Dan Timberlake. I was going to ask that. And Dr. Lane, the way you might want to phrase that question about debt is the amount of outstanding debt that they have.
Yes. Thanks, Dan.
But you can have your staff contact us if you'd like us to help phrase some of those questions if you'd like.
Will do.
I also think it might be helpful if we provided some data around what school divisions have been using financing through the public school authority. Which is related to, I think, their debt capacity as well.
And we'd be happy, Madam Chair.
Yes.
We'd be happy to provide that information about use of Virginia Public School Authority over the last 5 or 10 years.
Thank you. Any other data or information the commission would like to see at our next meeting? Ryan, I think you touched on a little bit the funding from the federal government through the recent stimulus package. And I know with the new infrastructure plan announced yesterday, I don't remember off the top of my head whether there was anything in there for school infrastructure, but perhaps we could have an overview of what funding is available or by then may have already been allocated for school facilities, or could be a potential source if not already allocated for school facilities.
Absolutely. I'll talk to Tyler and Zach and definitely put that together.
And Madam Chair, it's in there. They have quite a substantial sum for school construction. Of course, that's spread over 50 states, but
right.
It's
right. Okay. Anything else?
Yes, I have a question.
Delegate Simons.
I wondered if possibly some of our council could go over the marijuana legislation and see. I know that there was an opportunity fund created for some of the communities impacted by drugs over recent decades. And in the city of Newport News, we have a school that really needs to be rebuilt in such a community. So I wondered if we could find out if those funds could be used to rebuild schools in those highly impacted neighborhoods.
Yeah, by the time of our next meeting, we will we can have, I guess that would be more of an opinion rather than data itself. But I think, Ryan, is that something you could give us guidance on by the next meeting?
Yes, Madam Chair. I will talk to our resident expert, David May, about that, and we'll put something together. No problem.
And I think, again, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it'd be helpful for us to know if that I believe that section of the bill is subject to a reenactment clause. So we'll just all have to, if you can refresh our memory at the next meeting of whether it's subject to a reenactment clause and the effective date, because different parts of that bill have different effective dates.
Right. Yep. We'll have that all together after reconvene next week. Yep.
Thank you. And then anything else on data related to the current needs of our school facilities? We've already kind of gone into bullet point number 2, and that's sort of the available funding mechanisms. But I think it would also be helpful, and I saw somebody from Senate Finance, so I don't know if you're the right person to pull Tyler, I don't know if you're the right person to pull this together, but I think providing an overview of what all of the current funding resources that are available and how they have been utilized over the past few years. I don't know, pick a number you think is relevant, would also be helpful as well.
Senator McClellan, I can work on that. I think Kent Dickey also at DOE has provided this information and maybe a resource to this commission on that topic.
Thank you. Okay, so I think it is at our next meeting, we will sort of go over all of this data to get the scope of the problem that we are trying to solve, and then what resources are currently available. After that, I think we can begin to delve into some of the specific bill proposals that have been made recently, and invite those bill patrons to present those bills to the commission as possible funding sources going forward. And then we can get into the best practices and standard construction designs and cost savings, or after we have scoped the problem and potential funding resources. It is my hope, we don't have any limitations in the legislation on how often we can meet. Is that right, Stephen and Ryan?
Right. The only limitation, I guess, would be the funding for meeting expenses, which is less of an issue on Zoom anyway. So no specific meeting number limitation, though. You're correct.
Okay. I will have staff poll the commission on future meeting dates, and we will announce the remainder of the meeting schedule for the year at our next meeting. But for now, expect to see an email or a poll for the last week of May, or the first week of June, preferably the last week of May, I would assume, because getting into June, we're starting to get into the end of school, and I think we would rather have this done, keeping in mind, obviously, Memorial Day. We will try to get this done by the last week of May. Any other?
Senator, can I ask one question? I
Yes.
apologize. I was making notes on all the numerous data requests to make sure I had them. I missed your last request that you and Tyler were discussing. Could you state that one more time for me so I can make sure?
Yeah, it's really an overview of what funding sources and resources are available to our school divisions from any source, whether are there school divisions that use foundation grants, sort of what the total universe of funding other than direct appropriations from their locality are available.
Got it. Yes, we have that available. Thank you. I have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, thoughts on what you think the commission should do beyond what we've discussed?
Madam Chair.
Senator McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one quick comment. I appreciate the commission members to serve on this. This is an important endeavor. I appreciate your leadership, Madam Chair. But, between Chairman Gecker and Stuart Roberson and Joe D'Amico and many other resources on this call, I think we've got a great composition to really make some meaningful impact to the Commonwealth. So as we start out, I just want to thank the members for their time and effort as we move forward with this. And thank you for your leadership, Madam Chair.
Thank you. This is a team effort. I think everybody on this commission is dedicated and passionate about making sure that all of our students, no matter where they are, can learn and have the high quality public education that our Constitution strives for. And we know students can't learn if they're in an environment that makes that a challenge. And whether that's sitting in a 100-degree classroom with no air conditioning, or having moldy ceiling tiles falling down. I know there are a number of superintendents who what keeps them up at night is whether their chiller is going to break and how they're going to repair that. So we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can as a commission to ensure the Commonwealth is doing what it can to make sure that the environment in which our students learn is actually conducive to them being able to learn. So I know everybody on this commission is committed to that as well, and many of you have been focused on this issue for a very long time. And I just want to reiterate how I started. This is an urban issue. It is a suburban issue. It is a rural issue. We frankly have too many schools that just are not providing the environment that we need them to provide for our students to learn and thrive. So this commission is going to help solve that problem by making recommendations to the governor and the General Assembly by the end of the year. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you all, and we will gather again in May.
Move to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.